How's it going, YouTube? Your boy Chill here. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Rafa and his Ricochet build. And if the gameplay footage in the beginning was not proof enough, this build is disgusting for both mobbing perspectives and bossing. This thing is stupid strong. Now, of course, it's not going to one-shot bosses of Vault Hunter level 5 like Harlow can and Amon can, or even Vex. But Rafa can still compete, and even from the footage, you saw me melting bosses still pretty rapidly. So yeah, this build, you guys are going to love this build. I'm telling you this right now. So I'm going to be talking about the skills to invest in, the specializations to go for as well, and then the weapons, med kits, and everything else that I'm pairing for the build to make it top tier. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Like, comment, subscribe if you do. Let's get into it. So for the skills, first off, we're going to be focusing specifically on the red tree. So for this, we're going to be investing into Sitiar first, so that we just get a flat 25% increase to our gun damage. Pretty basic, pretty strong. Then next, we're going to go into Verga, so that way critically hitting an enemy gives us restoration for our action skill cooldown. We're going to be investing to our action skill cooldowns a lot. We want to have our action skill as much as possible to take advantage of overdrive, so that's why we're investing into this one. Then next, we're going to be investing into Bullet Buddy Deluxe, so that way whenever popping LB after our Peacebreaker cannons are out, we get no ammo consumption, although our action skill does drain a little bit faster. But having that increased incendiary damage as well on top of the Peacebreaker cannons will also play into another skill we're going to be investing later on that will help for melting bosses by happenstance. So yeah, this is going to be the biggest one we're going for here, as well as this pairing with other weapons in our kit will be able to make them very high DPS monsters and pretty much effectively kill bosses very rapidly. So that's why we're going to be investing into this one. It's the mainstay for this build. Then nextly, what I invested into was El Valiente, so I get increased damage from all sources, and the higher up my shields are, the bonus is increased even further. Then I invested my last 2 points into Deft Hand, so that we can increase fire rate for our Peacebreaker cannons and Rafa as well, just to help out with that DPS factor. Then from here, what I went for, I went into the left column tree first for asymmetric warfare, so that way indirect projectiles get increased damage. That includes projectiles from our action skill, thrown guns, and projectiles not fired from your gun. So that just helps play into our turrets to increase their damage even further, and what's going to happen next. After that, I have 1 point into hostile acquisition, so that we get lifesteal from our indirect projectiles. So that way, while I'm in the turret action skill duration of it, I'm getting lifesteal from all hits that are hitting enemies. So that way, it's adding a little extra survivability, especially in Vault Hunter level 5, where things can kill you very rapidly. So having that extra lifesteal is very nice. Then nextly, I invested into Aaron's Spark, giving us bonus incendiary damage for all indirect projectiles that include our grenades, thrown guns, and the turrets. And if the indirect projectile was already incendiary, it doubles the effect. So the reason why we're going for this one is because this, paired with this perk here, lateral blinking, all indirect projectiles get a chance to ricochet. Now there's a unique interaction with this one and Aaron's Spark. For some reason in the game's coding, or for whatever reason it's happening, the ricocheting from lateral blinking has a chance to ricochet off of itself. So if an Aaron's Spark incendiary projectile does ricochet, it can keep ricocheting indefinitely on itself so long as there's enemies to bounce back between. And with that, the damage scales even further for every additional ricochet that happens. So with that, if you're fighting a boss and there's a lot of enemies that happens to ricochet off them and continue ricocheting all the way back to the boss, it has the potential to do massive damage or even one-shot them outright when you weren't even aiming for the boss. Like the footage in the beginning, I was shooting one of 3 bosses, and the ricochet damage was actually ricocheting to the other 2 bosses and killed them before I even killed the main target I was trying to kill with my wombo combo. So yeah, the effects of this are very potent. Now again, this could be a potential bug. We don't know yet. And the patch for Borderlands 4 got delayed recently. That was going to change a lot of the meta. So who knows what's going to happen with that. So just keep in mind. But as of right now, the ricocheting effect is very strong. But even without that effect, this build is still pretty effective. Then nextly, after this tree, we're going to be investing into the right tree. Specifically for me, because of what mods and everything I'm using, I'm going for Barrage. So that way I get increased splash damage while Overdrive is active. The next thing I'm going to be investing into Barrage, specifically because I have a couple of Torque sticky round mag weapons that I'm using in my arsenal. So that way their damage is getting buffed even further from Barrage. So that's why I'm investing into that specifically. Then this next skill is going to be the most important one of our build, Temerario. Rafa gains a stack of Temerario every second Overdrive is active, giving an increase to gun damage and a decrease to gun handling. And with this paired with our class mod, it helps us get substantially more damage. So at max stacks right now with my class mod, I can get up to 70% gun damage just for having my active skill and Overdrive active at max stacks. While yes, the handling is slightly substantial, it doesn't affect your main gameplay. Everything still runs pretty smoothly. You're not getting negative benefits to that. So that's why Temerario is probably the biggest and most important skill for this build, just to increase our raw damage output. Next, we're going to be investing into Soldado to double our overdrive bonuses after getting a kill. That paired with Temerario for the increased gun damage and with the +2 to my class mod. With all that together, I would get a 140% gun damage increase at max stacks of Temerario. That's why these two are the most important perks you want to have in your kit, specifically for increasing our gun damage output while overdrive is active. And with the way we have it set up, we'll have overdrive pretty consistently. The next thing we're going to be investing into Vitriol to give ourselves bonus corrosive damage on the first shot of a fully loaded mag with Rafa. That paired with Bullet Bloody Deluxe allows the first shot consistently to give corrosive damage so long as we've activated the perk to consume no ammo. So the entire time we're firing with the duration of that, we have bonus corrosive damage on top of the incendiary damage we're getting with our cannons. So that already itself is adding extra damage to our build already. Next thing, I'm going to be investing into 1 point into concentrated buildup. Specifically 1 because from what testing and people have showed in the community, having more investment doesn't really do much for the build. So just having 1 is already a substantial damage increase to your build already. More investment is not really worth it. So all we have to do is aim down sights and we just get bonus shock damage innately and we don't have to worry about anything else. And it increases the longer we stay aiming down sights per target. And that paired with Bullet Bloody Deluxe, we'll be able to stay aiming down sights for a long time. The next thing we're going to be going into Pain Reaction to give our guns a chance to ricochet off of enemies with status effects. Having that paired with the electricity also allows for additional mobbing capabilities as well. Then lastly, the 2 points we'll be investing into is Inspirado, so that way we get increased cooldown rates and decreased action skill duration rate every time we apply a status effect. That paired with the Capstone Beam team, allowing our cannons to be shock beams and corrosive beams, will help us keep our action skill up for longer and longer and longer, helping us stay in overdrive consistently and take advantage of all the effects and damage increases that we're getting, especially with Temerario and Soldado. So in the case of fighting bosses or mobbing, we'll be able to have our action skill and overdrive up for as long as possible. Now, there will be some times where we might end up losing it preemptively. This is where specializations come into play. So for the specializations, this is what I have currently, but I'm still investing into some points right now. For the specializations, the 3 biggest ones you want to go for are now with Caffeine, I Am a Gun, and Riddle You This. Riddle You This so that we can get increased damage output just for consistently dealing damage. Now with Caffeine to reduce the action skill cooldown whenever using a rep kit, and with the specific rep kit that I'm using, I can pop it and get my action skill right away. And then I Am a Gun to give our action skill damage increases and benefits from gun damage so that way they can also help clear out ads more effectively. For the last one, it's kind of up for interpretation of what you want to use. Ideally, what I'm going for is a honed mind, so that way my action skills can critically hit enemies more effectively and do increase crit hit damage. But if you want to go into the killer tree to invest in for compounding afflictions, that's also another play you can go with this as well. But if not that, if you want to go for something a little bit more practical for just running and gunning, Bullet Train would be another good one to use. So that's what I have for specializations and for the skills. Now let's specifically go over the inventory of what weapons you want to pair for this. Going over the weapons first, one of the biggest ones you want to pair for this build is going to be Caisson. Specifically, if you can get it with a 4% damage increase from the sticky mag and have a damage of 216 times 2. That's the best one I've seen so far. I don't know if it can get further than that, but from what I've seen, this is probably the best one you can get out there. Having this paired with Bullet Bloody Deluxe will be able to increase the explosion damage even further because we can fire infinite stickies for a short duration and stack the damage increase as much as we can to basically one burst bosses from a bunch of stickies. So that's probably the biggest one you want to aim for, but any other torquey weapon you can find with stickies is probably another effective one to go for. One of my favorite weapons for mobbing specifically that I pair with this is Wombo Combo, especially for the vile enemies with their crystals. It just helps clear them out very fast. Specifically for Wombo Combo, if you're looking for this, ideally you want to go for a Cryo or Rad one, because it's just more universally better for anything you're going for. But the one I'm using for specifically is Cryo. Then for the other weapon, I'm using a complex route for, some bigger, tankier bosses that can take advantage of the ricocheting and outrunning projectiles of complex route. Although this slot is kind of open for whatever you want to use specifically, but I like complex route. And then lastly, I'm pairing a purple Doulahan, specifically for the spread launcher attachment. If you don't know about these shotguns, if you can get a Doulahan with a one-shot and spread launcher, it gives it the highest potential damage increase for spread launchers to have high damage output. So specifically for mine, I have 31,000 damage times 5. So I think this is the highest damage output I've seen for this, but I know it could probably get a little bit higher than that. Ideally, if you're going to be hunting for this, you want to look for 30,000. If it's a little bit less, it's not the end of the world, but the higher damage output you can get, the better. Then for my rep kit, I'm using the Mega Triple Bypass with Amp Shot specifically. That, pairing it with my Doulahan with the spread launcher, makes it do massive damage from one single shot. I pretty much one-shot most bosses with that, and if I use a crit knife, but I mean, with the crit knife being nerfed soon, even without it, it still does massive damage. So in this case, I would recommend the Amp Shot if you're using a Doulahan or something with a one-shot massive damage output. If not that, I would specifically look for a triple bypass with Enrage, so that way you have a flat damage increase for a set amount of time. That one specifically, If we haven't had much luck on the triple bypass, another good one would be just a purple rep kit with enrage and acceleration. So that way you can get the damage increase as well and help fuel our active skill cooldown rate even further to get it back even quicker. So that would be another one to go for. But I like using triple bypass because I can pop all 3 charges immediately, and that way I can get my active skill back right away. And if I am using it in a mobbing situation, I can get back rep kits easily just from the 30% chance of replacing a charge on a kill. So that's why I like triple bypass just a little bit more. But if you happen to get the purple rep kit with enrage and acceleration, that would be another go ahead as well. For the ordnance, it's kind of up to interpretation of what you want to use. Ideally, to play into the Ricochet part of the build, any grenade that has MIRV and multiple grenades spawning out of it would be the best ones to use, Blockbuster being one of the best ones to use in that case. Although, while the crit knife is still effective right now before it gets nerfed in the patch, the crit knife is still another go-to for this build. So if you have a crit knife, use it right now while you can. But if it does get nerfed, ideally you want to go look for a Blockbuster instead. And then for my class mod, I'm using Devastating Dancer, so that way overdrive bonuses are increased by 100%, although overdrive ends as soon as Rafa's action skill ends. So that's why we want to play into having a rep kit that gives us back charges fast, so that way we can get our action skill back faster to be in overdrive longer. Now, I didn't get a good roll specifically, although the roll I got, I actually prefer a little bit more because it has 4+ investment into Thrill, which increases our fire rate while in overdrive. Specifically, if you're going for a high damage output, you want 1 point of Soldado and 5 points of Temerario. But unfortunately, I wasn't lucky enough. But the Thrill is still pretty good, especially with pairing it with Kaison's fire rate, so that way I can put more stickies on the boss before I end up having to reload and explode them. That's probably the best one I like personally. But if you're going for pure damage output, you want to have a +5 on Temerario. For the shield, you have 2 options. You can either go into Super Soldier so that way you have maximum fire rate for bossing situations, or for mobbing, you would go with the Fireworks shield. Now for bossing, I like Super Soldier a lot, so that way they increase fire rate so I can put more stickies on a boss with Kaison even further, or just for general ad clearing as well with my Wombo combo. That's what I like it a little bit more for. But if I need ad clearing, Fireworks is also very substantial. Plus, it also plays into the kit for the elemental status ailments to that way increase our action skill cooldown rate and be in it for longer. So that's another play as well. Ideally, if you're going for a Fireworks, you want to aim for Cryo specifically just for mobbing potential and freezing enemies, but anyone will do just fine. As long as it has an element, it will still play into the kit. Then for my enhancement, I'm just using a Jacob's Once to play into a crit knife build, although whatever weapons you're using for it, feel free to adjust it to whatever one you're using. Now for the skill set bonuses, I'm going for 3 of Deadeye to increase our crit damage substantially further for consistent crit shots. Then I'm going to 1 investment of God Killer to increase our damage to badass enemies by 10%, which also will play into bosses if I remember correctly. And then for the last one, it's free up to ordnance is what I have it set up for. If I'm using my crit knife, I'm going for high caliber just so that way our projectile speed is just a little bit faster. Although if you're going for Blockbuster, I would recommend Get Throw so that increases ordnance damage by I believe 10%. That would be another one to go for that. And that's going to do it for this video. Appreciate y'all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you did. And I'll catch you in the next one. And don't you ever forget, keep it chill.